Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. You know, we'd like to get Krasney on here. Marc Krasney with the Krasney Law Firm. We'd like to get him on, get his insights on what's happening out there in the business front, and really to get his insights on some specific legal issues. And he is essentially a chief legal counsel for hire for businesses. Most companies don't want, most businesses can't afford even to have a full-time legal counsel. And someone like Marc really allows them to have that luxury without having the full-time price tag. Marc, welcome to the program. Tell us a little more about Krasney Law Firm.
Thanks, Kevin. I think that's a great way to put it. So many companies need an in-house counsel, but typically it's the large guys who make, the tons of money that actually get one. But, a lot of the mom and pop shops who opened up in the last several years are growing so large that they think, well, gosh, maybe we do need one, but they don't really think they can afford it. And so that's what our law firm does. It bridges the gap to allow, a smaller company to have access 24 hours a day to a lawyer, basically on call to answer questions, review documents, draft things, that kind of stuff. And, essentially it provides some level of comfort, I believe, to the business owner.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure, and almost like taking that jog every morning or your vitamins every day, makes you feel a little safer and better and how you're managing your life. Having a legal counsel like yours in your business, but not at the business, kind of gives you that same kind of personal comfort. I
agree. When I started my practice after law school, for 8 years, I was a litigator. And so I got the cases on the back end. So your company got into a problem, you called me, we tried to fix it as best as possible based on the facts inherited. That's a fine fact pattern, but what we'd like to do is the reverse, which is let's talk about what you're about to do, and let's see if we can plan short-term, long-term strategies so as to avoid litigation.
Yeah, no question about it. Makes perfect sense. So talk a little bit about estate planning. That's something that's obviously very crucial.
Yeah, I've spoken about it on your show a few times before, but it's come to the forefront again probably in the last month with my clients who want to discuss how to make sure money and or businesses pass to their heirs, their kids, their grandkids, how they can sort of legislate from the grave, I don't mind giving you this so long as you do that. And so a lot of our clients come to us and say, make that happen. I want to give my son, Kevin, some money, but, Kevin's not that sharp. He really can't handle money, so I want some rules put in there. How do I do that? And more times than not, business owners will say, that's how I want to do it. I don't care. And if that can't happen, I'm giving the money to the dog pound.
You must have been listening to the conversations my parents had.
I mean, it happens more times than not.
I think people would be shocked how often they were very vulnerable to not being part of that estate at the end.
Right, absolutely. And in Texas, you don't have to give money to your kids or grandkids or any family member. In Texas, you can donate or rather give money upon your death in your will to whomever you choose. And the courts will respect that because that was the wishes of the deceased.
Yep. Makes perfect sense. So what are some strategies that people should have in mind?
Yeah, so what we do is we'll visit with the business owner and say, what are we looking at? What's the size of the estate? What exactly do you want to do? What kind of rules do you want in place? And so Kevin's not very sharp with money. Let's set up a trust. And the trust basically says there's an entity that's given birth. It'll have a tax ID number, a whole separate entity that we're going to fund. And then with that entity that we fund, there's a trustee, the person that's going to step in the shoes of the deceased, to abide by certain rules that the deceased sets up upon setting up the trust. And most of the time it's for the health, maintenance, and welfare of the beneficiary. And so the trustee will read those rules upon the formation of the trust. And so somewhere down the road, Kevin needs some money. And so long as it meets the rules set forth by the deceased in the trust, guess what? Kevin gets some money. But if Kevin calls up and says, hey, trustee, I want to take a trip to Hawaii because I'm really stressed out, that might not meet the standard. But if Kevin has 7 kids and they need a new house because water pipes burst and, shelter's an issue, certainly the trustee would look at that and say, well, you know what, I really think that's what the executor, or rather the deceased, wanted. And so a trust will do that. The flip side would be if the deceased just says, here's $1 million, well, you know what, upon your death, that money transfers, and they're really, even if you put in there, hey, I really want you to use it for X, Y, and Z, the court can't enforce that. But in a trust, you can sort of set up some rules.
Yep, absolutely. And so, people immediately comes to mind is cost involved in something like that. What kind of investment is involved? Obviously, legal advice has got to be navigated through, with the help of an attorney. What are some of the other factors involved?
It's really not that expensive, and truthfully, it's in the best interest of the deceased, because if those truly are the wishes and you really want to put some strings to that money that your heirs will inherit, it's cheaper to do it this way. And you put in there, in the will or the trust, you say, in the event any of you heirs want to object, well, guess what? Your inheritance just went from X to Z, and Z is usually a very, very low number, and oftentimes that number is going to persuade the heirs not to object. Because clearly it can be enforced, and if the rules are set in there clearly enough, the judge will say, you know what, tough. And so, so long as it's written correctly, it's enforceable. And at this stage, I would say it's not very expensive to do. And so we ask the client to come in, talk to us a little bit, and then we do a will, a trust, some other documents, including powers of attorney, directive to physicians. And then we say, once it's all signed, client, stick it in a lockbox and really forget about it. We don't really want to focus on the client's mortality, but it's inevitable. Stick it in a lockbox and forget about it.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. I think it's a great topic, and people, need to have that. And obviously it begins with conversations, doesn't it? Not only with an attorney, but with family members.
It does, and it doesn't matter if you're 29 or 89. Somebody needs to, each person needs to have some type of document, especially if they have kids, a business, some size of estate. And then the last thing I would say is, it's not just important for the long term, it's important for the short term, because each year, Congress is going to change some of the rules with taxes. And so we work closely with some CPAs and tax attorneys, and it might benefit someone to have that discussion now, because money could transfer now tax-free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's really what people want. We don't want Uncle Sam to take any more of our money. And so a few quick discussions now with a legal counsel could save a tremendous amount of money to mom, dad, brothers, whomever, sisters.
Marc Krasney, he's with the Krasney Law Firm. That's Krasney, lawfirm.com. Always a great guest. Always glad to have you on the show. Thanks so much for being with us.
I appreciate it.
We want to remind you, best content here, including this interview, shows up over there at usdailyreview.com. While there, like it on Facebook, follow it on Twitter, and this is The Price of Business.